Okay, we'll call the meeting of the Personnel and Finance Committee meeting to order. Clerk Torado, can you do a roll call, please?
Committee Vice Chair Niskoski,
Present.
Councilmember Vice Chair Warner,
Present.
Councilmember Lee,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Councilmember White,
Present.
Councilmember Dr. Davis, Councilmember Bolden Simpson, Councilmember Gooden Rogers, President McBride, Citizen Members Angela Smith, Citizen Member Ross Deal. We have quorum.
Thank you. Chair Niskoski, any comments you would like to make?
Thank you, Councilman Warner. Just as the working session for the council members to answer any outstanding questions that they may have about the past presentations. I see there are a number of people from the city of South Bend here virtually with us. So at this time, if you have a question or something that wasn't addressed or you would like to have addressed, this is the time to talk it out now. So that's kind of the reason we hold this meeting. But however, if there is a question that comes up after this meeting, as a council member, you can certainly reach out directly to those department heads because we want to make sure that you're armed with all of the information that you need as we await the upcoming vote on the budget on October 14th. And I would like to thank Councilmember Warner for running the meeting for me tonight. I was unable to be there in person. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, then Mr. Willis, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm open to start answering any questions that the council may have. I'm not sure exactly what I need to do to start off.
Okay. And any questions from council members? Topics to address, things we want more clarity on. Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
I'm happy to start us off. Get this moving. I just really appreciate everybody's time and folks being here to answer any final questions that we might have and maybe address ones that haven't been yet answered. I'm going to go back to some questions that I had raised in our VPA budget hearing, and thank you for being here, Jordan and team. And you know, I don't necessarily like the fact that, you know, in budget meetings, we're needing to like explain programming or things like that. I really do feel that that's the work of committees, you know, with updates and everything. So, so I, you know, apologize for asking those here at this time. At the same time, I think that's important context and information as we are approving the budget. These are some of the questions that come from residents that we're hearing from. And so, and it also is an opportunity, I think, for our departments to highlight and give some more narrative to some of the programmings and increases or changes that are happening to help justify some of the changes moving forward. So, you know, I see it as maybe a final opportunity if that hasn't been happening or being updated. And committees over the year. So just want to give the team an opportunity to share about the work of GVI now that it is, it's fully housed in VPA since last year, I guess, those changes, and just to, provide any highlights and metrics and stats if we have them. If we don't, it's a simple, we're working on them and can get them or want to be able to do more, but just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that, since that was a question I'd asked earlier and still outstanding. That question in my mind kind of goes to some other security programs kind of questions, or again, an opportunity to explain like that part of VPA. But if you can start with GVI, anything you want to share there in terms of highlights, metrics, appreciate it.
All right. Good evening, Council. Jordan Gathers, Executive Director, Venue Parks and Arts. Thank you, Rachel Thomas Morgan, for that question. And again, do want to clarify and kind of give a nice little preamble before I have GVI Manager Malcolm Coates come up to provide the stats and the status of the performance metrics as it relates to GVI, group violence intervention. I will say that that ultimately this initiative, and this intervention program was to bring together community leaders. And so, with a unified, mission of reducing gun violence and supporting South Bend's highest risk of individuals to keep them out of prison, and to ensure that they are staying alive and free. So I will say, given the transition of GVI into VPA last year, we have continued to build upon that mission, continue to engage intentionally with our residents, with our youth, to ensure that we are impacting our community in a positive way. And as we do, as Mr. Coates will come up and provide some of the data and the metrics, but as you can see, in those data and metrics, we are seeing a reduction in violence, in gun shootings. And so that it is a positive. We're positively trending in the right direction. And then also would say, as far as security programming, I did want to get that question clarified. As far as security programming, we do have one contracted security who is solely at Howard Park. And so that has been in place for the last couple of years. And then we also have our safety and engagement teams that are a little bit more flexible across our park spaces. And so, but did want to clarify that the security program is not as expanded as one might think, but it is one that is working significantly well, as we are seeing minimal disturbances, specifically in Howard Park. As you know, over the last years, we've seen some uptick giving unsupervised activity happening in the park. And so, but as this year and last year, we're starting to see that trending to go down. And again, that is a testament to a collective effort to, yes, our contracted security, to our engagement and safety teams, as well as our partnerships and in collaboration with our police department as well. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Coates to go over some of the data and some of the highlights.
Thank you.
Malcolm Coates, 321 East Walter Street, South Bend, Indiana. To respond, I think, to your initial question about highlights, the highlight I would speak to is the fact that the numbers are trending down, because that is the entire purpose of the initiative, is to try to lessen, if not completely stop, gang or group violence, gun shootings. So we are down, and we won't go into all of the detail unless you just want me to. The last report that we gave, which was from January until June of this year, we had 22 total shootings. Last year at the same time, we had 29. the number of GMI, gang member involved shootings, was 13. Uh, There were 4 that we know were not, and 5 of them were not, we weren't able to confirm whether they were gang related or not. These are stats that come from the police department. So overall, I would say the initiative is working. Now, when I say that, you have to take into account there are multiple agencies and programs that are going on that I'm sure cross over with what we're doing. For instance, even housed under VPA is we have a violence prevention program, we have street outreach influencers, et cetera. So there is some cross-pollination, I guess, for lack of a better word, that goes on where we're working in the same streams, we're dealing with the same demographics. So I would imagine there are a lot of factors that have helped that number continue to go down. That's from last year to this year, but also the previous year, right? So we have at least a couple years of the shooting numbers trending down. So there's that part as far as GVI goes. It has continued to work. Law enforcement is still doing what they do. And I guess maybe give a quick overview as to how the program should work. The meat and potatoes of it anyway, because there are some side dishes that go along. But the main component is that the police refer those names that come up before them of known gang or group violence members, and they send them to our outreach team. Our outreach team is supposed to reach out to them and make contact and offer them, one, to make a different choice about their life that they're living. But secondly, in that offer to make a different choice, and usually we use the reality that you will probably end up either dead or locked up. We also offer social services. The program started in New York at John Jay College, and so it was an academic thought process to how this works. And the one thing they came away with is you can't talk to this demographic about stopping what they're doing if their immediate needs aren't met. And so those are some of the things that the social services agencies will take care of. So housing, food, transportation, jobs. We go as far as license, helping you reinstate your license. Sometimes people fall behind on child support and can't get caught up. The list goes on of trying to meet your immediate need so that hopefully you can then hear us talk to you about making better life choices. Ideally, what would happen is that relationship would go on until we were able to walk that person completely out of that lifestyle. So, as I said, that's the meat and potatoes of the program. There's other things we do, customs, jail customs, notifications, call-ins, et cetera. But those are outside of the main thing that should have the most impact, which, again, to simplify, getting the referrals from law enforcement and making contact.
So, okay.
So,
Thank you.
yes, I would like to know, explain this to me so I can understand. What makes Howard Park needs security versus Kennedy, Martin Luther King get ready to be open? These areas, how is it that you see security there? And what are you doing now to prepare for the opening of King Center? Because I guarantee you, we're gonna need some security there. So, I mean, just if you can tell me something briefly,
Surely.
I
I was gonna
appreciate
say, that's a great question. I was gonna defer to Executive Director Gathers.
Yes, that's a great question. And then that goes back into the proposal that we had as far as the visitor experience division, ensuring that we have a more cohesive and unified unit under one division that would handle security, safety, maintenance, custodial oversight, ensuring that all of that fall under one division, and that would be their primary focus for not only just Howard or specific parks, but for our park system as a whole. But they will certainly be at the new MLK Dream Center and other areas that have higher instances or of disturbances. Again, Howard, again, we were receiving a lot of police reports, a lot of complaints at that time, in which kind of we wanted to make sure that we had some presence there to help reduce that. And so now that it's been been successful, we want to continue to do that across our park system.
So what has been the results at Kennedy over in that area? Have you had any complaints, any serious complaints, or?
And Kennedy in particular, is that the question?
Kennedy, Bendix, that area.
Okay. Yeah, no, we've done a survey, a visitor experience survey, if you will. And that was completed back in June of this year. And so from that survey, we did have responses for all parks, but particularly with responses in Howard, Measle, and Fremont. And so those were the areas that folks and engaged surveyors were able to provide responses to how they felt about the safety, the feelings of safety, how to improve safety, and how to improve welcomeness in our park system. And so from that report, we were able to see that overall the ranking was out of 4 across the board. And the overall ranking that we got was 3.46. So we were, or 3.46 or 3.5. So for us, we feel like as though that's a win. And we can check that in the positive, that people feel safe and feel secure and welcomed and in those parks in particular. But we hope that those parks are just a microcosm of all of our parks across our system.
I don't want to be the only one asking questions. This will be my last one. So the survey that you were talking about, so is there a way that next time, because I didn't see no kind of survey, so the next survey that be done, can it be like put online or somewhere where maybe the general public, especially like if I was a person that traveled or stayed at one of these particular areas, I would like to be able to take that survey.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank
we
you.
can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Member White.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. And again, the comment that Councilwoman Gooden made, I think is a very important one. We talk about equity and we look at all of our parks, and I know it's going to take resources, but it's important that we can ensure that all of our citizens, regardless what park or what activity, that they are able to enjoy and to feel safe as well. But when you look at GVI, there's other components. At the first meeting that in which the parks had made their presentation, I asked the question, who's running GVI? That was not the right question that I asked. I was more concerned, and I apologize for that statement, in regards to the SAVE program, because the director had just recently resigned from that position. So I was wanting to know who's going to really operate the SAVE team. And there's various components. GVI is the concept and the initiative, but you also have the SAVE program, you have the more voices, and the police department is critical. So I'm going to ask, if I can, this will be my second question, is Pastor Lee can chime in regards to the SAVE team and how all of this is working. It's just not one component. It's all working together.
Well, as a note of disclosure, I have not been a part of the SAVE team for the last 2 years. But at one point I was the director and didn't know our intentionality on how they responded to shootings. responded to going to people's houses, shooters' houses, and and trying to navigate the system in order to help individuals. And so I, again, I shifted a different role in Goodwill, so I'm no longer the day-to-day person, but that would be a good question for Mr. Coates to answer, because that is a very important part of it. Going to the shootings, I know I was middle of the nights and intervening and stopping shootings from retaliation. And so that's another part that is hard to quantify, but it is a big part of what that outreach team does. And I don't want to get somebody filing a complaint against me for talking about it. I'm giving a full disclosure. I do not, my salary is not from SAVE, from the grant or anything, hadn't been since I got on the council. So I just want to let that be known.
Good point.
That actually is a good point, because it does speak to what you said. So who runs SAVE is Goodwill. That is the top of the umbrella. SAVE is just a part of what Goodwill Industries does. Now, to who's running that, you are correct. I forgot who said it. They did just recently lose their director. He took another position. And so now the CEO and one of her direct reports are doing the day-to-day operations of the SAVE. So it is still going on. They are in a period of transition with staff. And so they're kind of going through some changes in hopes of making sure they are working efficiently and effectively. So I think with the moving on of the director, it caused them to maybe pay a little more or scrutinize a little more what they were doing and how they were doing it. But it's still operating. Those things are still happening. As Council Member Lee said, still going out to shootings, still being a part of call-ins or custom notifications, and still doing the outreach. I will say, to that point about outreach and social services, those are two separate things, but they have been housed under SAVE. So SAVE did our outreach, but they also did our social services. And that's to say the fact that those two things could be separate entities. If we move forward and went with a different organization, we could, in theory, separate that, have a unit that just does outreach and a place that just does social services. Again, because Goodwill had the framework, they were able to do both of those things for us. You talked about the Moral Voice. The Moral Voice is a group of I'd say activists, community members with cachet in the community because they have established that they can be trusted, that they care about the community, that they are wise. And you could take that as another way of saying that they are elders, because that's what most of the Moral Voice is composed of. And I think that's what it should be. And they are the voice that should speak not just to the community, but for the community, to the demographics that we're talking about, those gang members, and let them know the impact that they're having with their actions, with the violence they commit. And last but not least is the core group, which just has accountability. They are the group that we are, or the initiative anyway, is accountable for. So that's a member of leaders in the city, essentially. Hopefully that answered that question.
Thank you. Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Yeah, I just want to ask my final questions here. There's going back, and thank you, Mr. Coates, for presenting some of those statistics. Those are statistics that are available at like the crime stats meetings. And I think, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I know a number of us, just very familiar with GUI from the beginning when we brought it here to South Bend. So really, really care about that program working at its maximum. And my questions just kind of get to that. I think there are ways that we can, think about how we we collect data and metrics, maybe moving forward. And, potentially you've all had conversations about that, but I think that that's something, that is important for folks in the community to see. We can't really make a direct correlation with, this and decreased shootings. We know it's part of the ecosystem for sure that's, causing this the decrease in our community. But I think being able to highlight the good work that GVI is doing with increased numbers would, I think just helps, highlight the work that you're doing. To park security, which is kind of where I was going here. So we have over the past year, and some of this is fairly new, and it's, sometimes hard for me to keep it straight in my head. We have kind of in part of that park, security system that we've put in place are ambassadors, the new poets program, SROs. And maybe I'm clumping all those together inaccurately, seeing them as park security, when that may not necessarily be the case. Some of this is violence prevention. But I would like to hear a little bit more just about the Poets program is fairly new. I recall it. I think it was in 2022 when we were, when that came on board. And so related, I'd like, related to the block by block program is wanting as well to talk about, to some extent, whatever the perception is that there is a level of security that exists with these ambassadors. That may or may not be the case, but if you could speak to, some of these programs, the poets, how that's working, but also in envisioning bringing the ambassadors in-house. And we have ambassadors at Howard Park, DTSB, and West Side corridors. Bringing those in-house, I guess, what is the strategy with that in terms of ongoing, the training? Do you believe we have the capacity to be able to bring that in-house? And then can you reassure that we're not seeing a reduction in staffing and visibility, but speak to the enhancements or the strengths that you hope to bring to those positions?
Absolutely. So I will say that as far as all of the collaborative efforts of the different teams, they are all not security. Poets are, park outreach engagement teams. So again, their strategy and focus is engagement. Again, building social capital, preventative measures to ensure that those disturbances do not escalate in our park spaces. And so they're engaging daily. They're engaging, in schools, in community centers, and across our park system. And so, but as far as the security piece, again, we do only have one contracted security. And again, we do hope to expand those security efforts as pending with the new visitor experience division, which is a great segue into being able to make sure we're building a solid foundation with insourcing the block by block services. We do feel very confident that though it is a a shift and a change pertaining to block by block. We feel as though we are more than capable, and we will certainly have the capacity to be able to move forward with better service, better quality service, and be able to have the expertise to ensure that those services are excellent at a high level. I will say that the expenses that we have had with block by block, again, we are saving cost. We have a significant cost savings by insourcing them within our division. And again, it cuts the duplicate services where we have our park team as well as the block by block ambassadors in the same physical spaces. And we feel as though we wanted to be able to bring more cohesion, again, more collaboration under one umbrella as opposed to two. And again, it draws more of a better accountability. And again, saving those costs was a huge piece. Going from being able to go from the $824,000 expended for the block by block services and reducing that by approximately 48% to be able to insource this, to have the existing staff, and then to be able to add the additional staff to be able to take on those services without compromising them for the long run.
So we won't be seeing a reduction in visibility but an enhanced scope of work is what
Yeah.
we're imagining.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And actually, we'll probably be seeing an increased staff presence on weekends and weekdays, given the new improved visitor experience division.
Mhm. So that wouldn't impact positions like the homeless outreach position that was there as well.
So the outreach
correct?
coordinator is not a part of the park side of the expense, but yeah, so I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other budget questions? Chairman Nitzgotsky, I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair Warner. I forgot in my opening comments to mention that this is a council working session only. This was meant for council members to openly have a discussion about any outstanding questions or new questions, and that this will not have a public hearing. So I just wanted to relay that. My apologies for not mentioning that in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Jordan, thank you. So again, the proposal that you guys have proposed to us is going to save us from $820,000 to close to about 300 to 350, and what we would normally be paying out.
So actually, again, the 824, and then of course the visitor experience side was roughly from my budget presentation was roughly 230,000, and then as far as the insourcing of the block by block services was 430,000.
Okay. And how will we know that this is? What can you perceive as a way to quantify if this is working?
I would say that the VPA team is already doing an excellent job. That work is presented daily in our quality of excellence and being dedicated. Our guys are up early. Our guys are there late. And so again, I'm betting on our team to ensure that our mission, ensuring that our places are welcoming, our public spaces for all are welcoming, equitable, and at the highest level of standard of care. So that gives me great confidence in moving forward with this proposal.
Okay.
We're gonna ask two questions, okay? This, again, what measurable outcomes will you begin to put in place as you move forward? I think that will be very important, and as well as coming back before the council through the Parks Committee to give an update as the transition is being made, and maybe on a quarterly basis, but I think having those measurable outcomes will be very, very helpful. So my question, in regards to, looking back on some of the questions that I asked, that is to have a list of, all positions that will be receiving higher than the 3% and what department are they in? Not to you, I'm sorry, this goes, Kyle, but also, the number of, employees who are not at their cap. And I just think that that's information that I would like to have as we begin to move forward. That was the information I had requested too.
Got you.
Mhm.
So you're asking for higher than standard increases,
Mhm.
and then also the other
And the
question.
departments, and also any new positions, and what departments are they in?
Got you.
Mhm.
Okay, but also I think maybe I got this wrong on the initial question was, thought the question was how many employees were being paid at their cap.
Okay.
I did. I
You can do it
provided-
that way too, because
Yeah.
I get the same results.
Yes, so I provided that earlier, those responses earlier,
Mhm.
especially for that one. And right now, so the way, how I did it was basically any employees that are like within $1
Okay.
of their cap. And
Mhm.
it's just, there's some rounding in our system. So that number was 81 right now. But if, if you expand that number to, you say, within $100 of their cap,
Mhm.
to me, they're pretty much at their cap.
Okay,
That number would be larger too.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So I have anything else?
I'm new, so bear with me here. I I guess I want to take this as an opportunity to kind of like offer some questions / feedback because citizen members aren't voting members and we don't really get a say in the end. But I want to thank the departments that provided org charts with their budget presentations. And I think that's really important for council to know and see, and the general public. And especially when it gets to, and I think this is a little bit of what you're asking, Councilwoman White, like when you're starting to look at the higher than standard increases and how those compare across departments and how those compare across positions. I'm not a fan of comparing it to market rate because I can tell you that 99% of the employees in the South Bend city government can make more outside of this department or outside of the city government. I don't think the majority of the employees do what they do because of the salary. They do what they do because of the mission. But I understand you have to have some competitiveness in there. I think the org chart helps kind of keep that in check. So it would be nice if that could be provided going forward from the departments and something for the council to look at. I feel like when there is a higher than standard increase, there should be a really good justification for that. That being said, I think as a whole, the council is behind the city is behind the 8 ball on this. The county has been doing 4% year over year increases for their employees, and I think the city's been at 3%. So that just puts us further and further behind each year. I do know that there was a point in time, because I was in that point in time where we got no increase, and so I get it. But like if it's a year over year thing, I think the city should kind of do that. And then the hopes would be that if we were doing standard of living increases, there wouldn't be as much need for higher than standard increases for individual positions. So I guess this is just a general question to ask for the departments as a whole to start providing those org charts and giving detailed explanations of higher than standard increases so that it's not just something that's easier to justify. That's not really a question, it's a comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Lee.
Yes, and one of the things from Public Works, Mr. Can, thank you for being here. Is it possible to get a list of where, I think we might have asked this question before, where speed bumps will go? I think every district maybe get like 2 or something like that, but would we be able to influence where those go, kind of like we do with streets and sidewalks, or would you be able to tell us? And you don't have to give it to us tonight unless you know, but would like to know where the next areas of speed bumps will go.
Good evening, Council. Jitsin Kane, Deputy Director of Public Works, offices on the 13th floor of this building. I can certainly share the list of speed humps that are scheduled to go in next year. The bid was just, I believe, awarded, so these will be constructed next year. Unfortunately, the selection of speed humps is not done in a sort of a subjective way, so we can't allocate that to council members. The speed hump selection is based on a number of criteria, from looking at accidents to doing speed studies to looking at the land uses around the sites, looking at complaints. So there's a whole range of things that our engineers look at. So they're looking at technical data, they assign scores, and then based on scores, similar to how we do our street assessment, the conditions for speeding are assessed, and then decisions are made on where the speed humps will go.
Thank you.
And we can certainly share that
Yes,
list with you.
if
Yeah.
you could, that'd be great. I have a lot of constituents who are asking these questions and. Done. I figured since you were here, Jiten, we would ask you a question so you wouldn't felt like I went to this meeting and nobody asked me a question. So
Good job.
Okay, with that, we're adjourned. Good night, everybody. Thank you.